Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started.
Rikishi sent Jacob Fatu a forward message days after his match against Braun Strowman. Fatu and Strowman crossed paths at Saturday night's main event in Texas. Since debuting in WWE, Fatu has destroyed some of the biggest names on the roster, including Strowman, his latest victim. The Samoan Werewolf left the former WWE Universal Champion in a bloody mess on January 25. On Instagram, Rikishi reacted to one of Fatu's interviews and praised the 32-year-old superstar for making it big in the professional wrestling industry. Fatu declared that he was just getting started in the aftermath of Solo Sikoa's loss to Roman Reigns in Tribal Combat on Raw's Netflix premiere. Amid the former tribal chief's absence, Fatu and Tama Tonga have represented the bloodline. Their stablemate, Tondaloa, remains out of action due to an injury he suffered in the men's War Games match in 2024. Sam Roberts believes Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu will cross paths again in the future. Sam Roberts believes Roman Reigns won't be pleased with Jacob Fatu after his actions at Saturday night's main event. For those unaware, on the January 25 show, Fatu wore a red garland to the ring, which was slightly similar to the Ula Fala. Since signing with WWE, Fatu has played a major role in the Bloodline storyline. He has been the personal enforcer of Sikoa, the OTC's latest rival. On the Not Sam Wrestling podcast, Roberts had the following to say about a potential feud between the Samoan Werewolf and Reigns. "I am just saying, when you've got Jacob Fatu with a performance like he had against Braun Strowman wearing what he was wearing, at some point, the tribal chief Roman Reigns will have something to say." Fatu and Strowman's feud could be far from over, considering the monster of all monsters sent a message to his archrival after Saturday night's main event. The Samoan Werewolf could enter the upcoming Men's Royal Rumble match, which would feature top names like Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, and others. Days had passed since Jacob Fatu had issued a bold statement that shook the wrestling world. The rising star of the Samoan dynasty had spoken out, declaring that he was ready to step out of the shadows and claim his place at the top of the WWE ladder. With the bloodline in a state of flux and tensions rising, Fatu's words seemed to signify a changing of the guard. He wasn't just Roman Reigns' cousin or part of the famed Anoa'i family, he was Jacob Fatu, and he was ready to carve his own path. However, there was one name that had been silent amid all the noise. The elder Samoan legend, Rikishi, a man who had been the heartbeat of the Anoa'i family for years, was yet to weigh in. His absence from the conversation was as heavy as it was noticeable. The wrestling world waited, wondering when the patriarch would speak up. It was an early morning when the message came. Jacob was in the gym, working through his routine, drenched in sweat and focus. The weight of his statement still loomed over him, and with every lift, he felt the pressure build. Was he ready for the responsibilities that came with his declaration? Would his family embrace his ambition, or would they see him as a threat? These questions bounced around in his head as he set the dumbbell back in place, wiping his face. His phone buzzed on the edge of the bench. He reached for it, half expecting it to be another text from a manager or perhaps a fan offering their opinion. Instead, he saw a message from an unknown number. The area code was familiar, Hawaiian, the island his family had once called home. But the name wasn't. He opened the text. "Time to step up." 4 simple words, but they hit like a freight train. It wasn't from any wrestling personality or agent. No, this message had come from none other than Rikishi. Jacob sat down on the bench, his breath caught in his throat. He stared at the message for several moments, trying to digest its meaning. The message was short, direct, and yet, it carried so much weight. Time to step up. Was it an endorsement? A challenge? A warning? Rikishi's words were always laced with wisdom, grounded in the culture and tradition of the Samoan heritage. The Anoa'i family wasn't just a wrestling dynasty, it was a legacy of strength, honor, and unity. Rikishi himself had faced many battles in his career, both in and out of the ring. From his days as a wild tag team competitor to his solo success, he had been a figure of resilience and respect. Jacob's mind raced. Was Rikishi telling him it was his time to take over the family mantle? Or was he reminding him of the responsibility that came with their bloodline? His thoughts were interrupted by a series of knocks on the door. His trainer entered, offering a quick greeting before moving toward the mat. But Jacob wasn't fully present. His focus was on the message, the words hanging in the air like a challenge he couldn't avoid. Later that day, Jacob sat down to respond. He thought about calling Rikishi directly. After all, they had always shared a good relationship, but something about the simplicity of the message struck him. Perhaps this was more than a conversation, it was a statement of trust. After a few moments of contemplation, Jacob typed his response. "I'm ready." He hit send and leaned back, waiting. His phone stayed silent for what felt like an eternity. The words delivered and read appeared, but no new message came through. Jacob paced the room, the tension mounting. Then, just as he thought about setting the phone down, it buzzed again. His heart skipped a beat as he saw the familiar name on the screen. It was Rikishi, but this time, the message was even shorter. "Make it count." Jacob smiled to himself. He knew exactly what Rikishi meant. It wasn't just about stepping into the ring or achieving glory, it was about earning respect and building something that would last. He needed to prove to himself, and to the world, that he had the strength to carry the Samoan legacy forward. The next few days passed in a blur as Jacob prepared for what was to come. His phone buzzed again, but this time, he didn't need to check it. He knew Rikishi's words would be in his mind as he walked down that path. The family had always been there for each other, and now, it was time to rise to the occasion. He wasn't just a part of the legacy anymore, he was the future of it. By the time Jacob made his way to the WWE Performance Center for his next big match, the message had taken root in his soul. He wasn't just going to be another cog in the machine. He was going to stand out. He was going to make a statement that no one would forget. As he entered the ring, his mind flashed back to his family, to Rikishi, and to those 4 words. Time to step up. The crowd roared as Jacob stood tall, focused, and determined. His eyes narrowed as he looked around the arena, knowing that this was his moment. The Anoa'i family had produced legends, but now, it was his turn to join them. The bell rang, and Jacob's opponent charged forward, but Jacob was ready. The match was brutal, but he fought with everything he had. Every slam, every move, carried the weight of the legacy that ran through his veins. Every punch he threw felt like a message to his family, to his ancestors, and to the world. This wasn't just another match, this was his time to prove himself. With a thunderous roar, Jacob hit his finishing move, pinning his opponent to the mat. The referee's hand slammed the canvas for the 3 count, and the arena erupted in cheers. Jacob stood over his fallen opponent, chest heaving with exertion, but there was something deeper at play. This wasn't just about the victory, it was about what came after. As he raised his arms in triumph, the lights dimmed and the message from Rikishi echoed in his mind. Make it count. And in that moment, Jacob Fatu knew that he was no longer just a part of the family's history. He was making his own history. The world would soon know the name Jacob Fatu, and they would know it well. After the match, he found a quiet space backstage to collect his thoughts. He pulled out his phone and saw a new text from Rikishi. Proud of you. Jacob smiled, the weight of those words sinking in. He had done it. He had made it count. The legacy of the Anoa'i family was in good hands, and Jacob Fatu was ready to lead it into the future.